Zach, your first thoughts of first practice of spring camp?
I think it went pretty good. Learning under Coach Avalos, actually like being in the group. I'm starting to learn more about football and just about the edge position. And I'm starting to realize how deep and talented our group is. Like, I think we can go all the way to the national championship with our group, or the whole defense, actually, because we're just all so talented.
You earned a second-team freshman All-American from the Athletic in the offseason. I'm just curious, how much did that mean to you?
It meant the world to me because it showed that I'm producing, and that was one of the main goals for me last year. As kind of a young guy, I just wanted to produce and show that I have the talent to be a vet and that to actually start on this team.
Kind of building off that, you are now kind of like that vet, kind of emerging as a leader in their defense. How have you been kind of approaching leadership now?
Just gotta. I've been approaching it slow and steady. I'm still learning. I'm still learning under some of the older guys, and yeah, I'm just still trying to gain experience.
Some of those older guys aren't going through team stuff like Paul and Michael. That's giving you guys more reps, especially you. What are your goals for the spring with those extra reps that you're getting to have?
Every rep is to get better, and just plan on to get better. That's all I can really do. That's what the spring is for. Just get better and just to prove to the coaches.
Last year you guys won 9 games, but you also won 6 of your last 7. Is there anything to kind of carrying that momentum into the spring and helping that launch you forward?
Yeah, that puts a really big chip on our shoulder as a defense. Winning the last, you said 7?
6 of the
last 6. That just means that we have to keep on producing on defensively, and we just have to be on top of our game. Avalos, he don't allow nothing else.
You were saying you felt like your defense it could be at a national championship level. What makes the defense so good?
Just the commitment that everybody's putting in. Everybody's putting in the time. Everybody's putting in the hard work, and it's a true culture to what we have behind our defense, our mob defense, as we call it. That's really it, just our culture.
What's the biggest area you feel like you've kind of grown in since you got to TCU?
Definitely my strength, because in high school I played a little bit of 3-tech, and last year and the year before I've been playing 3-tech, so I feel like playing on the inside has made me a lot stronger, that I can play better on the outside.
Who came up with the nickname?
The Reaper?
Oh, you said the mob defense?
Oh, the mob defense. That's just been, I think that's been with us since I've got here. Yeah, since Coach Gillespie's been here.
I'd like to hear about
Yeah, I need to hear about the Reaper.
Oh, yeah, people started calling me the Reaper in high school because I was just killing everybody on the field.
Is that taken over here at TCU as well?
I hope so.
You talked about the depth of the defensive line and the defense as a whole. Some of these freshmen that have come in, I know it's just the first day of spring camp, but you've seen them through workouts. Can you talk about some of the guys in the freshman class and how they've integrated, like Chad before?
Oh, Chad, man, I ain't gonna lie. Chad might be one of the strongest guys, one of the strongest freshmen I've seen in a long time. He's probably one of our stronger guys in the weight room, especially at the edge position. Just you could tell he's been lifted for a long time, especially coming out of high school. And on the offensive side, one of the people I saw popping out today was Micah. Micah's doing pretty good. He was I think he was running with the 1s and 2s a little bit, and he was just making great plays.
Anything else for Zachary?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Zach.
All right.
Trent, just talking about the running back room, you're the veteran, you're the leader. What do you see in the running backs right now?
I think there's a lot of potential. I think that this room we have a lot to prove. I think that everybody last year, the big question mark was the run game. And I think we took that to heart this offseason, and everybody in the room busted their butts. Everybody's numbers went up. Everybody gained muscle mass. Everybody got faster. And so I think we're ready to put that all on the field.
What went into the number change for you?
I wore 17 3 years now, going on it, and just coming out this year, I feel like I wanted to change something. Like, I knew this year was kind of going to be a bigger year for me, and I wanted to make a change, and I feel like that was kind of helping me get in a different mindset, to be in a different mentality.
You talked about the challenges that you guys want as a running back. What challenges have you set for yourself? What goals do you have?
The biggest goal for me is consistency. Being able to be a consistent downhill runner, being able to, and I think like, especially in the room, we all agree that it's 4 yards a carry. And so if we can average 4 a carry, we'll be a productive offense. That'll help Hoove get the ball out. He won't be in 3rd and longs. We'll be in 3rd and short. It helps Coach Browse call plays easier, gives us a lot more options, and it increases the production of the offense.
You said you guys took it to heart. Was there ever a moment in the weight room or an early morning where you saw everyone there where you thought this year's going to be different?
Yeah. I mean, day one, I feel like the vibe was different. You kind of, especially nowadays in today's world where you have the transfer portal and the roster turnover is large every year. Like, you have just a different team every year, different group of guys. You have to rebuild your culture, and I think the team that wins is the teams that can get everybody to buy into their program the fastest. And so coming in this offseason, goal number 1 was, who do we have, what do we got, and how are we going to get everybody to buy in? And so coming in day one, our leaders, DJ, me, Hoover, Caleb Norms, or Namdi, guys like that, stepping up and letting guys know like the standards we have here and the expectations, and that's how we're going to run things. And everybody bought in. We've got a great group of transfers, great group of freshmen, and I'm excited.
When you guys talked about the run game last year, you talked about there were some issues there, but we talked to the offensive linemen this offseason too, and they said it's their fault as well. How much have you guys talked as a running back group to the offensive line about just collectively making sure the run game's better?
It's a completely different level this year. Like, we're with them, they're with us all the time. Like, the intentions are there. Like, the level of details up three knocks, and I mean we're locked in with them, they're locked in with us. They know what we're thinking, we know what they're thinking. Like, we're trying to take it to a whole nother level. Like, there's no comparison.
Sonny Dykes always talks about the importance of player leadership. You just listed a whole group of guys. Did you get together and decide, hey, if we're going to step up, it's our time to be leaders, or did that come more naturally?
I feel like it was something that came naturally off rip. I kind of, your guys that have been here, your guys who have seen things, just like DJ, Namdi, all those guys. We've been on the team that went to the national championship. We've been on teams that have went 5-7 and missed a bowl game. We were on the team last year that went to the New Mexico Bowl. We've been in every stage of it, and we've seen what it takes. So kind of that was like an unspoken thing that we know what it takes. We know what it looks like when it doesn't work. We know what it looks like when it does work. We're going to figure it out, and we're going to talk to each other. We're going to communicate with each other. And I think Coach Kaz really helped us facilitate that. He kind of talked to us every day throughout, like, off-season workouts, telling us what he's seeing. We're talking to him, telling him what we're seeing, and we're working together. He's helping us build that and get better at leadership in a way.
You see the differences in teams through the course of your career. What's your impression on this team? I know it's early, but what's your impression overall so far?
The only thing I can say right now is that this team is bought in. They want to be here at TCU. Like I said earlier, great group of freshmen, great group of transfers. Like Coach Kaz gave us numbers. I think a big picture that you can look at that shows that the guys are bought in. After off-season workouts, you had almost the entire team was up at least 4 pounds of muscle. So, and like down certain body fat numbers, like you can see that the guys are bought in. They're bought into recovery, they're bought into training, they're bought into lifting. Now we're getting bought into practicing. We're learning how to practice hard. There's so many different levels that this team is taking steps to be a great team.
Anything else for Trent? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Then we'll go to questions.
Well, I just want to start with kind of acknowledging and giving a quick shout out to the women's basketball team and Coach Campbell for what he's done this year. It's been fun to see, man. Those guys have really come together as a team. They got a lot of really fun players to watch, and excited about watching them against Notre Dame this weekend. And so just kind of wanted to start with that. And, you know, it was fun to go to the game the other day and watch that team compete. And you know, there's a lot to be learned from the way that they play together and the way that they've meshed all those, you know, players and transfers and newcomers into a team. And you can just see it, the way they care about each other and invest in each other is pretty fun to see. And again, it's a real credit to Coach and his group and what they've done. So it's been fun to see. So congratulations to them, and like I said, we'll be cheering for him on Saturday. From today's practice, I thought it was a really good start. I mean, I think, I'm going to tell you the same thing I told our players. We're just so much further along than we've been, just in terms of guys knowing what to do. Maturity. I love the maturity of this team. The leadership, I think, has a chance to be really kind of unique and special. We just have a lot of guys that have played a lot of snaps and really care about this place and care about this team and want to see it. Want to see us play to our potential. So excited about the mentality this group had, the way that they practiced. I thought they practiced like pros today. I mean, we made a million mistakes and we've got a million things to correct. But just the mentality was good. We did not have a single pre-snap penalty today. Did not have a bad snap. Didn't put the ball on the ground once. So just when you look at those kind of things, I was really encouraged by that. No offsides defensively. Just, we practiced like a mature football team that, is detail-oriented. So from that standpoint, it was a good start. I thought some guys, individuals, kind of had their best practice. I thought Ken Seals has made a huge jump today. He looked like a different guy. You can tell, he's really dedicated himself in the offseason. He looks better physically, he looks different physically. And he came out and performed really incredibly well today. And again, made a huge jump, and that's going to be such an important, position for us. I thought Hoover threw the ball well. You got to remember this time last year, Josh was coming off of back surgery. And so, he didn't participate in spring ball. I think sometimes we all forget that. He to me, he's taken that next step as well. And so I was encouraged by those guys. Offensively, loved a lot of the new faces. Defensively, liked the way that we move around. I think it's a talented group, more depth, certainly up front than we've had. Hard to say a whole lot about it without, pads and today we were in spider pads and couldn't do a whole lot from a banging standpoint, but just like the way the guys move, like the body types, like the length that we have. I thought those guys looked powerful up front. So I was encouraged by that. And again, you build football programs up front. And so, as I said, I love the young talent we have on the defensive front, love the young talent we have on the offensive line. Was excited about some things those guys did today. So anyway, good starting point. And as I said earlier, got a long way to go. A lot of things we got to improve on, but it was good to see us get off to a good start.
Depth on the defensive line. Zach Chapman was a voted second-team freshman All-American after the last season he had. What are just your expectations for him?
Yeah, just continue to get better. I think Zach had to do it all last year. We played him in a couple of different positions and, had to go inside sometimes just because we ran out of bodies at times last year. And the thing I love about Zach is he kind of answered the call. He was a little light to be doing some of the things that we asked him to do. He's obviously gotten bigger and stronger and is playing more comfortable now. And I think, we want him to take the next step. We want him to become a really consistent player and somebody that we can count on to go out and execute our defense and win some one-on-one battles and rush the passer. He's certainly capable of doing that. And so that's going to be the big thing for him. And, and be a good run support guy down in, down out. You know what I mean? Be able to hold the point, be able to play physical. And those are things that he did at times last year, but probably wasn't as consistent as he needed to be, being a young player. And so we're excited. I think he's got huge potential. Excited to see, how he progresses this spring. And he's one of those guys that I just talked about that's a young player that we're excited about and to see how he continues to grow and develop.
Coach, when you look at the guys out there today, there's obviously a high level of athleticism out there. How good do you feel about the type of athletes that you have on the roster right now?
Well, good. I mean, I think, what you always want to try to do is build as much depth as you can. And I feel good about 1 through 85, in terms of just guys that are older and have been developed, guys that are kind of in the middle of their development, and then guys that are young and starting to head that way. You know, people that need to take a step did it at least day one. You know, Dozie physically looks different. Thought he practiced different. Thought he, you know, last year he was here kind of going through the motions. This year he practiced with a purpose. And so, you know, that's what you need to see. You need to see those young guys that have talent start to play to their capabilities and to practice their capabilities. And it all starts with their mentality. And you know, I think those guys had such a good offseason that I think they're confident about where they are physically. I think they notice that they're different physically. I think they're stronger, faster, you know, more durable than they have been. And I think that gives them that confidence to go out there and practice at a high level. And so was encouraged by those guys. I mean, we're longer than we have been. We've got more guys that we can run, that can run than we have had. You know, it's just a more talented football team from top to bottom. And, you know, we still have 10 scholarship players coming in to add to the group. So like the talent that we have, you know, and like anything else, we got to continue to get better and better, but it felt like it was a good start.
It's the first spring where neither side of the ball is having to learn a new system.
Right.
How much of an advantage?
That's a huge advantage. I mean, having you know, carryover, I think allows you to go out and practice like you did today. You know, I can remember 2 years ago, you know, our first practice, we covered the tight end up, you know, 10 times. We didn't have enough guys on the line of scrimmage another 6 or 7 times. You know, we had a bunch of false starts. We had bad snaps. We had guys that were misaligned. You know, and then we were better last year and we're better this year. And so I think, like anything, you know, the more time you get in the system, the more comfortable you become, and the higher level that you execute at. So I'm encouraged by that. I mean, you could tell defensively that guys know what to do and know how to do it. And, you know, the returners for sure. I think the young players are, you know, we've had a good offseason as far as teaching goes. And, you know, those guys are learning what to do and how to do it. And so, you know, I was encouraged by that. Just felt like that, you know, you could tell it's year 2. Defensively, you could tell it's year 3 on offense. And the guys are much more comfortable and able to go out there and execute.
How good was to see Cade Bennett back on the field?
Good, yeah. Cade, you know, excited to see Cade and think he feels good. You know, it's been a while since he's played football, so he's going to be a little bit rusty. But it's good to see him out there. You know, I think there's going to be a lot of competition on the offensive line for spots, you know, and that's what you want. I'm very encouraged by that. You know, my guess is, you know, I'm hoping that there's 10 guys competing for playing time, you know, maybe even more. And if you get to that point, then that's going to be a good problem to have, is trying to figure out who the starters are going to be up front. And you have lots of different opportunities to move guys around, get your best 5 on the field, and let those guys build some continuity together and go out and play. So encouraged by the competition there. I think there's going to be competition at the corner spot. You know, there's going to be a lot of competition and some young guys that are going to push some of the older guys, you know, at the stud position, and some places that are going to be, you know, it's going to be fun to watch guys compete and see who comes out on top. We've got depth in some good positions and in positions of importance. A lot of guys at safety that have a chance to develop, and same thing at wide receiver. You know, lots of different options there, and if we can continue to get Dozie and those guys to come along, you know, Jakal's gotten better. You know, it's good to see Pimpkin out there. I thought he did some good things today with the tight ends. So I was encouraged. Mason Peterson, I think, kind of opened some guys' eyes today as a true freshman tight end. So I was just encouraged by that whole group.
Coach, Devon McGyver's a really interesting story. Walk on at a D2 school.
Yep.
Now he's making plays, having some good plays today. Can you talk a little bit about him?
Yeah. You know, he's one of those guys that is still just developing as a football player. You know, he's kind of a late developer, which, you know, those guys in today's college football world, so many of these guys, you know, start getting recruited as freshmen and sophomores. Sometimes those players that are late developers, you know, get overlooked a little bit. You know, and he's done that. I mean, he's walked on in a small program, got put on scholarship, moved up, played at a pretty high level, came here, and has done nothing but continue to get better. I mean, physically, he looks better, he's stronger, he's bigger, he's faster, he's more explosive. He's had a great deal of dedication in the off season, to doing those things, to getting more physical and to being more explosive, and you can see it. I mean, he's long, he knows how to play the position, he's competitive, he'll play physical. So, it's hard to go out there and find a 6'2", 6'3" corner. Those guys are very, very difficult to find. And he's a guy that has really developed himself into having an opportunity to be a really good player. So excited about him and what he brings to the table. He's got a great work ethic and attitude, and he's incredibly appreciative to be here. He's one of those guys that has had to fight and scratch for everything, and those guys have a great mindset typically. And he wasn't some guy that's been babied since he was a freshman, in high school. He's had to fight and scratch and compete and overcome a lot of different things. And I think there's a mentality that comes along with that.
Trent Battle spoke about the leadership of this team. What have you seen from him so far?
Yeah, Trent's one of those guys, just steady. You know what you're going to get every day from Trent. He's going to show up, he's going to work hard, he's going to be a great teammate. He's obviously got the athletic ability to help our football team. And kind of goes back to what I said earlier. To me, there's going to be a high level of competition at the running back spot. You know what I mean? I think there is, we need consistency at that position. I don't think we ever got settled on anybody last year. Looking back, that was probably one of the most unsettled positions in our team. And we've got to figure out who we can count on and who those guys are going to be, and get them, get them squared away and get them settled, and have some guys that we can count on. And Trent's one of those guys. He just, exactly what you're going to get from him day in, day out. And so, the guys believe in him, the guys trust him, the guys know that he cares about everybody on the team. It's not the Trent Battle show. He's worried about TCU and our program and us winning games, and it's incredibly unselfish. It's never been about him. It's always been about the team, and just a tremendous leader.
Having Bud and Andrew back for another season, what can that do for this defense this year?
Yeah, that's huge. Just having those guys back that have played a lot of football, those guys are kind of grown men. They've been around a long time. They've played in big games. They both, played the national championship game and played a lot. And so, they're guys that have seen it all. And just having that kind of experience, I think is huge. And I think they're both incredibly dedicated and focused on, playing their best football and maximizing, their opportunities and their potential. And same thing, they're both great team guys. They both really love TCU, and they both want this program to be successful, and they have a lot of pride in their performance and how they've trained and how they've performed, and excited to watch both of them play. I think those two guys have an opportunity to be, some of the better players at their position, certainly in our conference, and really in college football. So excited about their potential. And again, I'm appreciative for those guys for coming back and wanting to be a part of this team, and I think it means a lot to them to be back here. And I think it's it's fun when you coach those guys that every rep matters, and they want to be great. And so every step on the practice field is important to those guys.
Coach, big shoes to fill at receiver with 3 losses.
Yeah.
What do you like about the guys that you brought in, and Eric's coming back? What do you like with that group?
Yeah, it's funny. I thought, Eric dropped 3 balls today, which is very highly unusual for Eric. But I love the way he practiced. You know what I mean? He just had a mentality about him. He practiced like a pro. You know what I mean? He was focused. He was attentive. He was detailed. He looked like a different guy. He looked like a guy that's was hungry and wants to be the number 1 receiver. So I was really encouraged by that. Like I said, he dropped some balls. I'm not worried about that. Eric McAllister's not going to drop many balls. It's just not who he is. But but loved his mentality, and again, loved his effort, and you could just tell he's just carrying himself much different than he has in the past. You know, you got Jordan Dwyer, who I love. You know, he's one of those guys, he doesn't, you know, he's never going to be the biggest or fastest guy, but he knows how to get open, knows how to make plays, knows how to catch the ball. Like what I've seen out of him. You know, Man Jack is that guy that's going to be incredibly competitive and is more athletic than you think he is. I mean, you know, we think he has a chance to fill kind of the best shoes, which are big shoes to fill. But I think he's up for the challenge to do that. And again, I think, you know, from an overall depth standpoint, this group is much deeper than we've been. You know, just because, again, some of those young guys have developed. And so excited about what they can be. They're certainly not there yet. Got a long way to go. You know, having Major and Jordan Bailey be a little limited right now. We're kind of trying to combine those two for one in practice. They're both coming off of some injuries, and we want to be smart with those guys and you know, keep them practicing as long as we can this spring. So, you know, I love the group. I love the diversity of the group. We've got big guys. We've got guys that can run. You know, we've got guys, I think, that can go get the ball probably better than we've had in the past. At least I think we have the potential to. So, you know, fired up about that group. As you said, I mean, they got big shoes to fill. You know, between, you know, JP and Savion and Jack, you know, those were three really consistent, you know, performers last year, guys that we could count on and guys that made big plays for us. And I think we've got some guys that can fill those shoes. Now they got to go out and do it, and they got to do it consistently. And so, you know, we'll kind of see how that plays out.
We talked about it in the past, but where do you fall some of this chatter about maybe turning spring games into spring scrimmage?
You know what? I mean, it's not necessarily my thing, you know. I mean, I see it as chatter. I don't really understand, you know, what you're trying to accomplish by that, but, you know, maybe that's just a lack of understanding on my end. I don't know. You know, I would understand it maybe a little bit more in the fall. And I get kind of the idea of having a spring game against another team. In today's transfer world, I mean, you're talking about teams not having spring games, so they don't show people their players. Well, now you're talking about two teams playing against each other. And so, you know, coaches are falling on both ends of the spectrum, you know, in terms of we don't want to have a spring game because we don't want to show anybody our players, and then we don't care at all about showing people our players, so much so that we're going to play against somebody else. You know what I mean? So I probably fall somewhere in the middle. I don't really have an opinion about it. You know, they tell me we get 15 practices, and, you know, my job's to figure out how to get this team better. In the 15 practices, I'll let everybody else worry about that stuff.
Coach,
There's a pretty big leadership change this offseason. I'd just love to hear your initial impression of Mike Buddy.
Yeah, you know, I've been very impressed with Mike. I mean, he comes highly recommended by everybody that I talk to. You know, when you hire a new athletic director, you always want to kind of try to find out, okay, what's this guy like? And you know, everybody that I've talked to has nothing but great things to say about him. I think my interactions with him have all been, I've been very impressed. I think he's very thoughtful. I think he's very, you know, I think he understands what's unique about TCU, you know, and what makes us different. You worry about that when you bring in somebody kind of from the outside, because it is really different. This place is different and unique and has its own niche, but I think Mike understands that. I think that's probably why they hired him, is because his ability to you know, see the big picture for TCU and how we fit, and I think he's got a really clear vision for that, especially from somebody who hasn't been here. So I'm really looking forward to having a chance to work with him. He's been incredibly supportive. You know, we've asked to do a number of things, and he's been open to listening and to doing everything we've asked. And so I'm excited to work with him. You know, I really am. I think that, you know, I think there's a reason why so many people have said so many good things about him. That's certainly been my first impression.
Coach, we've talked in the past freshmen don't look like freshmen anymore.
Yeah, it's different.
They've been here since January. What are your thoughts from them, from the time they arrived into the first?
Yeah. Well, look, I've said it a million times. I really believe, our strength and conditioning staff is as good as there is at any level. I just, what kind of happens is they come in and you kind of turn it over to the strength and conditioning staff. And, they kind of take the car and tune it up and add things to it and then give it back to you. And, I think they gave us back a good car. The guys they look good physically. We're a lean football team. You're going to look out there and see anybody that's a lot of guys that are overweight or any of those kind of issues. I think that, we can move. I think we have been trained to go out and to play football. Sometimes you train players and you sit up here and you brag about how much they lift or how much they bench or how much they squat. All that stuff's important. But really what matters is how do they train that's going to allow them to go out and be better players and more productive and stay healthy and help us win. And so I think with with our group, I think it's a great group. I think that the synergy between them and the training staff, I think, is really, really good when it comes to return to play protocols and what we're trying to do with some of the guys that we're trying to get back. If you look at our team last year, there's not many teams that probably won 9 games that their 2 best D linemen and their 2 best corners never took a snap. You know what I'm saying? And that happened last year for us. And so, the goal is to make sure that those guys play this year and we get them back better than they were before. And so, they all had some pretty catastrophic injuries and stuff that's taken a while to return from. And so we've got to be pretty careful about how we bring those guys back. But, the freshmen from where they started to where they are now, you kind of look at it and you go, man, I can't believe it's only been, 3 months, really, because they've made some huge jumps in that time frame. And so excited to see, how they continue to get bigger and stronger and faster. And, and I think, again, our guys have that understanding of, look, it's really about keeping these guys healthy and keeping them on the practice field so they can practice every day and improve. And we say it all the time, the most important ability is availability. We want all the guys to be available going through practice so they can continue to get better, get those reps that are so important to their growth as a player and our growth as a program.
Coach, you talked about the competition on the offensive line.
Yeah.
A player like Ben Taylor, what he's been here and been asked to do more each year. How have you seen him grow going through his new year?
Yeah. I think this is a big year for Ben. He's kind of a young guy that I think was probably got on the field a little faster than we expected or maybe even wanted him to. And I think he's been kind of drinking out of a fire hose in some ways, last couple of years, just because he was forced to play for us. And he's a guy that's, very capable of being a high-level player. And so, we want to see him kind of take that next step, learn how to prepare and practice like a pro, learn how to go out there and be incredibly consistent day in, day out, learn how to finish, learn how to take care of himself off the field at the level that we need for him to do to play at his very best. And so all those things are still works in progress, but he's a lot further along right now than he has been. And, and just continue to get better at technique. I mean, that everybody knows that the offensive line is the most technical position in football. There's just a lot of things that you can learn and improve. And when you kind of match his athleticism and his size and strength with that technique is when you kind of get something special. And so, my hope is that he continues to grow and improve and get better because he certainly is a guy that's got a high ceiling.
We'll go 2 more questions if you have them.
What's your impression on the guys that went through the combine and the pro day and all that?
Yeah, I didn't get to see him. We were on spring break that week. Kind of kept up with the guys via social media. I thought they performed well. I was proud of the group. I think, again, it goes back to how they've been trained. And so I felt like those guys went out and performed well. I think JP's a guy that someone's going to get a steal from him. He's just when you put the tape on, sometimes you forget how many plays he made. You forget how few times the first guy tackled him. He's just kind of elusive and, incredibly consistent, plays hard. I mean, he's a guy that I think is going to have value in the NFL and has an opportunity to carve out a really good career for himself. Obviously, Jack and Savion are both guys that I think are, they didn't do a whole lot at the Big 12 stuff or anything really, but they're guys that I think, Jack obviously had a great Senior Bowl. I know Cooper McDonald really ran well and did some good things, and the guys were excited about him. So, I think I'm excited to see where those guys go. I think we have a lot of guys that, aren't going to be necessarily high draft picks, but guys that can make an NFL roster and be good, productive players. And I think that's what you want to see from those guys.
Thanks, Coach.
Okay, thank you guys. Appreciate it.